The night was thick with fog, the kind that swallowed sound and blurred shapes. A blacked-out MH-60 helicopter sliced through the darkness, its rotors chopping the air with a steady mechanical rhythm. Down below, in a clearing carved into the dense forest, a small team of Navy SEALs crouched behind makeshift barricades, eyes scanning the shadows. They had trained for countless scenarios, but tonight's mission felt different, heavier, darker, and somehow personal. The rumors about the new operative had preceded her. No one had seen her in action before, yet whispers had made her reputation precede her arrival. She was small, almost unremarkable at first glance, but the stories painted her as a force that no one could ignore, precise, fearless, and untouchable. Even the most battle-hardened SEALs had been left in awe at her exploits, missions no one thought survivable, infiltrations that had defied logic, escapes that seemed impossible. As the helicopter descended, the downwash scattered leaves and whipped dirt into the air. The SEALs adjusted their grips on their rifles, muscles tense, ready for anything. And then she stepped out. Falcon, her call sign already carried weight. The name alone had earned nods of respect from men who had seen hell and back. She moved with a quiet confidence, every step measured, eyes sharp and unflinching. She carried only the essentials, light pack, sidearm, and a combat knife strapped to her thigh, but the way she handled herself suggested a dangerous combination of skill and instinct. "New guy looks capable," muttered one SEAL under his breath, but his tone was laced with disbelief rather than reassurance. She caught the remark, though her expression remained neutral. She didn't need to boast, her actions spoke for her. The comms crackled, breaking the tense silence. "Falcon, you're live in 5, came the calm voice of Mission Control. Falcon gave a slight nod, her eyes scanning the perimeter. The team had learned quickly that she didn't just move through a mission. She seemed to see it unfold before it happened, as though she could anticipate every threat. The SEALs were skeptical. They worked with some of the best in the world, yet something about her made the hairs on the back of their necks stand on end. The fog wasn't just hiding the enemy, it seemed to cloak her presence as well. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out from the edge of the clearing. The sound cracked through the night like a whip, sharp and unnerving. The SEALs ducked instinctively, scanning for the source. Falcon didn't flinch. Her eyes narrowed, tracking the origin of the sound. She whispered instructions, quick, precise, and unhesitating, and the team moved in sync, covering each other, following her lead as if she had been guiding them all along. The shot had come from too close for comfort. Every second felt stretched, the forest around them alive with potential threats. Falcon's hand hovered near her weapon, but she didn't draw yet. She had a patience honed by countless operations, the kind of patience that made a predator of her rather than the hunted. The team advanced, shadows stretching long under the weak moonlight. Falcon led with silent authority, moving with a grace that belied the danger. Every sound, every rustle of leaves was analyzed, catalogued, and prepared for. The SEALs followed, some more hesitant than others, watching her take the point as though instinct demanded it. "Eyes up," she whispered, stopping abruptly. Her hand gestured sharply toward a break in the fog. The team froze, listening. The only sound was the distant whir of the helicopter fatting behind them. Then out of the darkness, a pair of eyes glinted, metallic, reflective. An enemy scout crouched and waiting, his rifle trained on their position. Falcon didn't hesitate. She dropped to the ground silently, rolling toward cover, and fired a single precise shot. The enemy crumpled before anyone else even had time to react. The SEALs blinked, momentarily stunned. She hadn't just neutralized the threat, she had done it before anyone could process what had happened. One SEAL muttered, barely audible, "How the hell did she?" but stopped mid-word, realizing the question didn't need an answer. The forest seemed to hold its breath. For a brief moment, nothing moved. Then a faint noise, metal scraping against stone, echoed from deeper within the trees. Falcon's eyes scanned the fog, calculating, reading the terrain, and anticipating danger. She signaled the team to tighten formation, fingers slicing the air in precise, silent commands. The SEALs obeyed, still trying to reconcile the reality that they were following someone they barely knew, someone whose reputation was more legend than verified. Yet there was no denying the instinct, the authority in her movements, the sense that she could survive situations that would flat the rest of them. "Keep moving," she whispered. Her voice was calm, controlled, but beneath it was a quiet edge that hinted at the storm she could unleash if provoked. Every man in the team felt it, a mixture of awe, fear, and something else they couldn't quite define. The clearing ahead was deceptively quiet. Fallen leaves crunched underfoot, betraying the team's movement to anyone watching. Falcon paused at the edge, crouching low, eyes scanning the tree line. She could sense it, a trap. It was too still. The wind carried something strange, smoke perhaps, or a faint chemical scent that set her nerves on high alert. Before she could react, another gunshot shattered the fragile calm, closer this time, cutting through the fog with deadly precision. The team dove for cover, but Falcon was already moving, a shadow among shadows. She rolled, ducked, and returned fire in perfect synchronization, eliminating the threat before it could even register as a danger. The SEALs scrambled to keep up, adrenaline spiking as the forest erupted around them. It was one thing to train for a firefight, and another entirely to witness it executed with such lethal efficiency. Falcon moved as if the forest itself obeyed her commands, her presence reshaping the battlefield without a single word. Then, just as the team began to regain composure, a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. Leaves and dust tumbled from the trees, the fog swirling with unnatural intensity. The SEALs froze, eyes wide, weapons raised. Falcon's gaze sharpened. Whatever was coming, it was massive, fast, and far from ordinary. She motioned the team to spread out, eyes scanning the darkness. The fog seemed to thicken, concealing a shape that moved with terrifying speed toward their position. Falcon's hand hovered over her weapon, instinct screaming, but her face remained calm, focused, like a predator on the hunt. The SEALs, hearts pounding, exchanged glances. They had trained for combat, for chaos, for missions that tested the limits of human endurance. But tonight, in the fog-laden clearing following Falcon, they felt like children watching a masterclass in survival. And then the sound hit them, a deep mechanical roar followed by a shadowy mass barreling through the trees. Something was coming, something they hadn't anticipated. Falcon's eyes narrowed. She had seen this before, somewhere deep in her memory, and she knew the real danger hadn't even arrived yet. Her team looked at her, waiting for the command. The silence stretched, thick and tense, broken only by the distant whir of rotors and the creeping sound of approaching doom. Falcon's lips curved slightly, not a smile but a recognition of the challenge ahead. She was ready. And just as the first branch snapped under the weight of something massive, Falcon whispered, "Hold on, it's about to get real." The forest trembled. The SEALs tightened their grips. And in that moment the legend of Falcon began to unfold, one heartbeat at a time as the fog closed in, concealing the threat that would test every ounce of skill, courage, and instinct they possessed. The fog clung to the forest like a living entity, swirling around the SEALs' boots, muffling the sounds of the approaching threat. Falcon led the team cautiously, her eyes scanning every shadow, every movement, every ripple of the underbrush. She didn't speak much. Her presence alone was enough to command attention. The SEALs, despite their elite training, felt a mix of admiration and unease. This was a woman who seemed untouchable, yet completely human, the combination both inspiring and terrifying. "Movement at 3 o'clock, one of the SEALs whispered, his voice barely audible over the thrum of adrenaline in his veins. Falcon's eyes followed the direction without hesitation, calculating, processing, anticipating. A squad of hostile operatives emerged from the fog, rifles raised, their approach silent but deadly. Falcon dropped low to the ground, signaling the SEALs to fan out. They moved like shadows, blending with the darkness, trusting her instincts even when fear gnawed at their nerves. The first volley of gunfire erupted, sharp cracks in the night, and chaos descended upon the clearing. Yet Falcon moved with unnatural precision, neutralizing enemies with swift, calculated strikes, her movements fluid as if choreographed. One seal couldn't keep up, stumbling over a root. Without a word, Falcon was there, pulling him back into cover before an enemy bullet could find him. Her eyes, sharp as knives, never left the threat, yet the motion was effortless, instinctive. The seal's heart pounded in his chest, disbelief mixing with gratitude. "She's unreal," he muttered, barely daring to breathe. The firefight escalated, bullets ricocheting off tree trunks, sparks flying where metal met metal. Falcon's team relied on her signals, a hand flick, a nod, a tilt of the head, and moved with a synchronicity that seemed impossible. Each maneuver was precise, minimizing risk, maximizing impact. The forest was a battlefield, yet she navigated it with the grace of a predator, the calm of someone who had faced death countless times and emerged unscathed. Then came the first sign that this mission would test more than skill. A sudden explosion ripped through the trees ahead, sending splinters and leaves into the air. The seals were thrown off balance, dust choking their lungs, ears ringing. Falcon's eyes flared with sharp focus. She could sense the trap before it was fully sprung, something planted, something deadly. "Grenade!" she yelled, grabbing the nearest seal and throwing him behind a fallen log. Another grenade detonated just feet away, shaking the ground violently. The seals coughed, regaining their senses as Falcon rolled to her feet, eyes scanning for the next threat. The team noticed something remarkable. Falcon didn't just react. She anticipated. She calculated the trajectory of each blast, the enemy positions, even the likely escape routes. It was as if she had a map of the battle etched into her mind, every movement of friend and foe accounted for. Suddenly, a new sound cut through the chaos, a mechanical whir, low and menacing. Something wasn't human and it was moving fast. Falcon's jaw tightened. She had anticipated human adversaries, but this was different. Something massive, armored, and moving with terrifying speed was approaching. The seals turned, scanning the fog, weapons raised. The trees shook under the weight of the approaching machine. Bullets struck its exterior with little effect. Falcon's eyes narrowed. She had seconds to decide: engage, evade, or find a way to turn this threat into an advantage. "Move left," she commanded, pointing toward a narrow ravine that offered temporary cover. The team obeyed, moving as if bound to her instincts. Falcon kept her gaze on the threat, calculating angles, distance, and timing. Every step, every decision mattered. They reached the ravine, ducking behind rocks and fallen branches. The mechanical monstrosity passed overhead, massive treads crushing the earth, metal plates clanging with each movement. Falcon didn't flinch. She traced its path, noting weak points, openings, and angles of vulnerability. "Time to make them regret showing up," she muttered under her breath, barely audible. With a flick of her wrist, she signaled the team. A coordinated counterattack began. Seals moved with precision, suppressing fire, while Falcon maneuvered closer, her smaller frame an advantage in the confined space. The machine fired, loud and devastating, yet Falcon's movements were fluid, almost untouchable. She climbed over debris, slid under metal claws, and launched a sequence of explosive charges at critical points. Sparks flew, metal twisted, and finally, with a shuddering crash, the mechanical threat faltered, collapsing into a smoldering heap. The team exhaled, barely believing what had just happened. Falcon wiped sweat from her brow, expression calm, composed. No celebration, no satisfaction, just the cold awareness that the mission had only begun. Then came the next challenge. A convoy moving silently through the fog, hostile operatives in armored trucks, guns trained forward, engines muted. They were too close for comfort. Falcon's eyes locked on them. There was no time to call for backup, no chance to retreat. She had to act, and she had to act now. She signaled the team, orchestrating a counterattack that seemed almost instinctual. One seal would create a diversion, another would flank, while Falcon herself moved through the line of fire, eliminating threats with lethal precision. Bullets tore through the mist, grenades exploded, and the forest erupted into chaos once again. The seals watched, unable to keep up, as Falcon moved with an almost supernatural ease. She climbed atop the nearest truck silently, taking out a turret before it could be fired. She rolled through the debris, sliding under a barricade, and emerged moments later, unscathed. One seal whispered, "I've never seen anything like this." But Falcon didn't acknowledge it. Her focus was on the next threat, the next movement, the next challenge. And then out of the corner of her eye she saw it, a glint of metal on the ridge above. A sniper watching, waiting, not human, not ordinary, and yet trained, experienced, deadly. Falcon froze for a heartbeat, calculating the risk. Every second mattered. One wrong move, one miscalculated step, and the entire team could be wiped out. She scanned the ridge, noting the angles, the cover, the potential escape routes. She had faced snipers before, but something about this one was different. The eyes peering down at her were sharp, calculating, almost challenging. The seals followed her gaze, but none could see the sniper as clearly as Falcon. She clenched her fists, jaw tightening. She would have to act, but the ridge was heavily guarded. One misstep, one wrong choice, and it would be the last mistake they ever made. The tension was palpable. The fog hung thick, concealing the sniper's intentions. Falcon's team waited, breath held, trusting her instincts, knowing that every second counted. The night had already tested them beyond imagination, but the sniper was another level entirely, a test not just of skill but of nerve, precision, and courage. Falcon's eyes narrowed. She could feel the weight of the mission, the weight of her team's lives resting on her decisions. And in that instant, the fog seemed to close in, the forest holding its breath, as if the world itself anticipated what would happen next. "Stay sharp," she whispered, voice barely audible over the rustling leaves. "We're not done yet." And then from the ridge, a shadow shifted, signaling the beginning of a silent duel that could decide the fate of the team. The convoy moved with eerie precision through the fog-laden forest, engines nearly silent, tires crunching on the soft earth with deceptive stealth. Falcon crouched behind a fallen log, eyes tracing the route the enemy had chosen. The seals fanned out around her, their breathing shallow, muscles coiled, waiting for the command. They had learned to follow her instincts, even when those instincts defied logic. Falcon's gaze locked on the lead truck, armored and bristling with weapons. She signaled with a subtle flick of her wrist, orchestrating a synchronized movement so precise it felt almost choreographed. One seal would suppress from the left, another from the right, while Falcon herself slipped through the shadows, her smaller frame allowing her to navigate areas the others couldn't. Bullets shattered the silence. The forest erupted into chaos. Falcon moved like a phantom, a blur weaving between trees, her rifle precise, her timing perfect. Explosions sent smoke curling into the fog, and the seals, trained for combat, struggled to keep up. Each move she made was calculated, deadly, yet seemingly effortless. The lead truck swerved, trying to respond, but Falcon was already on it, climbing the side with a speed that defied belief. She dropped a grenade inside, then vaulted off just as the explosion rocked the vehicle, sending splinters of metal and shards of glass flying. The other seals were stunned, momentarily frozen by the audacity of her actions. "Move," she shouted, voice calm but commanding. The team surged forward, engaging the remaining trucks. The battle became a blur of gunfire, smoke, and chaos. Falcon darted between cover, taking down threats with a mix of stealth and aggression that left the seals in awe. She wasn't just leading, she was redefining what it meant to be in the field. Then she saw it, the ridge. High above the convoy, a faint glint caught her eye. A sniper. The team followed her gaze, but the fog obscured the figure. Falcon's heart rate spiked, not from fear but from the intensity of calculation. Every sniper she had ever faced paled in comparison to the precision emanating from that ridge. This one wasn't just waiting, it was predicting. "Stay low," she whispered, crouching as bullets whizzed past. "Eyes sharp, don't move until I signal." The sniper fired, each shot precise, intended to disrupt and intimidate. One SEAL dove for cover, another froze momentarily. Falcon's eyes narrowed. She had seconds to act. The sniper wasn't just a threat, it was a puzzle, a test, and Falcon thrived on tests. She moved with calculated patience, slipping through the fog, her every step measured. The sniper's eyes were sharp, but Falcon's instincts sharper. She climbed a fallen tree, using it to gain a higher vantage without revealing herself. Her breathing slowed, heart steady, every muscle coiled like a spring. Then the sniper shifted. Falcon's breath caught, not in fear but in recognition. The sniper was a woman, equally skilled, equally precise. A silent acknowledgement passed between them, an unspoken understanding of mutual respect and deadly intent. The forest seemed to hold its breath as two of the world's most lethal predators assessed each other, every movement weighted, every twitch of muscle significant. Falcon calculated angles, distance, timing. The sniper had the advantage of height, cover, and range. Falcon had instinct, agility, and unpredictability, a deadly equation that could tip in an instant, one misstep spelling disaster for the entire team. She shifted slightly, drawing the sniper's attention, then leapt to the side, rolling behind cover just as a shot tore through the air where she had been moments before. The SEALs held their breath. They had never seen anyone move like this, and the tension gripped them like a vice. Falcon's mind raced. She could take the shot from her new position, but the risk was immense. She needed to draw the sniper out, force her hand, create an opening. Falcon's eyes scanned the ridge, searching for patterns, vulnerabilities. She had seconds to act, and the SEALs' lives depended on it. She fired a single shot, precise, calculated, and timed to provoke a reaction. The sniper responded, shifting, giving Falcon the glimpse she needed. In an instant, Falcon moved, a blur darting through the underbrush, climbing toward the ridge with unmatched agility. Bullets whipped past her, sparks hitting rocks and trees as if the forest itself tested her resolve. The SEALs watched, hearts pounding, unable to move, unable to intervene. Falcon was alone, yet utterly unstoppable. She reached the ridge, crouching low, eyes locked on her adversary. The sniper raised her rifle again, but Falcon anticipated the movement, deflecting the shot with a well-aimed counter, the sound of metal striking metal echoing through the trees. The duel intensified. Two women, both lethal, both precise, circling each other in silence, their movements a deadly dance. Falcon felt the adrenaline surge, yet her mind remained razor-sharp. She had faced impossible odds before, but this was different. The sniper wasn't just skilled, she was calculating, predicting, almost one step ahead. Suddenly, a distant explosion shook the forest. Falcon's attention flicked momentarily, calculating the secondary threat. The SEALs were under fire and she needed to end this quickly. With a surge of speed, she closed the distance, rolling under the sniper's line of sight, and launched a precise attack. The sniper faltered, just enough. Falcon took her chance, disabling the enemy operative with skill that bordered on the supernatural. The forest fell silent. The convoy was destroyed, the sniper neutralized, and the threat seemed contained. The SEALs exhaled collectively, relief washing over them, but it was tempered by exhaustion and disbelief. They had survived, but the night was far from over. Falcon scanned the fog, aware that more challenges awaited. The mechanical ambush, the sniper, the convoy, they had been tests, trials designed to push the team to their limits. And somewhere beyond the reach of their senses, a larger threat loomed, waiting to strike. "Regroup," she ordered, voice steady, calm. The SEALs moved closer, their respect and awe mingling with fear. They had seen her in action, witnessed feats they had only heard about, and yet Falcon showed no signs of triumph, no hint of arrogance. She was a soldier, a leader, a predator, and her eyes were already on the next challenge. As they regrouped, a low rumble shook the ground beneath them. Falcon's eyes narrowed, scanning the fog for the source. Something massive was approaching, faster than any vehicle, stronger than any force they had faced. The SEALs exchanged glances, realizing that their night of horror was far from over. Falcon's gaze hardened. She could feel it in her bones. The real threat hadn't arrived yet. The convoy, the sniper, they were only the opening act. The true test, the one that would push every member of the team to the brink, was about to begin. She signaled the SEALs, her movements precise, conveying urgency without panic. They followed, hearts pounding, eyes wide with anticipation. The fog thickened, shadows lengthened, and the forest seemed alive with unseen danger. And then from the darkness a figure emerged, massive, armored, and moving with terrifying speed. The ground shook with each step. Falcon froze for a heartbeat, then motioned the team into position. This was it, the real battle, the moment where skill, courage, and instinct would be tested like never before. The SEALs braced, weapons raised. Falcon's eyes flicked between them, calculating, strategizing. She knew what had to be done, and she knew there was no room for error. The fog concealed the true size of the approaching threat, making every second more critical, every decision more dangerous. "Stay sharp," she whispered. "We're about to find out what we're really made of." The forest trembled and the shadow loomed larger. Falcon's team followed her lead, trusting instinct, training, and the woman who carried the call sign that would soon become legend. The battle had only just begun. The fog hung thick, muffling the sound of approaching danger. Falcon crouched low on the ridge, eyes scanning the twisted branches and dark undergrowth below. The SEALs were hidden nearby, relying on her instinctive guidance, hearts pounding in tandem with the adrenaline rushing through their veins. Every movement mattered, every second could mean life or death. And above them, perched like a shadowed sentinel, was the sniper, a woman just as deadly, just as precise, and just as calculating. Falcon's mind raced through every scenario she had trained for. She had faced snipers before, but none like this. None with the silent menace, the calculated patience, the confidence that comes only from years of survival in impossible situations. She knew she couldn't rush, couldn't rely on brute force. This duel would be mental as much as physical. The sniper shifted slightly, and Falcon felt her muscles tense, ready to react. She studied the enemy's patterns, the subtle tilts of the head, the micro-adjustments of the rifle, the way the weight shifted from one foot to another. Each movement told a story, a vulnerability, a hint of what would come next. Falcon's eyes narrowed. She had seconds to act, and the team below depended on her. She moved with deliberate silence, rolling behind a fallen log, then sliding across the ridge to a vantage point that gave her a better angle without exposing herself. The sniper followed with perfect precision, tracking every micro-movement. Bullets whipped through the fog, thudding into bark, stone, and ground as Falcon calculated her next move. Then came the first exchange of fire. Falcon fired a controlled shot designed to provoke, not kill. The sniper reacted instantly, firing back, the bullet stitching the air where Falcon had been seconds before. Falcon ducked, rolled, and repositioned, each movement a dance of calculated survival. She could feel the tension building, the unspoken challenge hanging between them. For a moment, time slowed. The world reduced to the ridge, the fog, the sniper, and Falcon. Both women were predators, both deadly, both aware that one mistake could be fatal. Falcon's hand hovered near her rifle, her breathing steady, mind focused with ruthless clarity. Then the sniper fired again, a near-perfect shot aimed to force Falcon into cover. Falcon anticipated it, pivoted mid-roll, and returned fire with pinpoint accuracy. She wasn't just surviving, she was dictating the terms of engagement, controlling the battlefield despite the sniper's high ground advantage. The SEALs watched in stunned silence from below. They had trained for countless scenarios, had faced elite adversaries, but nothing could have prepared them for this. Falcon was operating on a level that defied comprehension. She wasn't just skilled, she was instinct incarnate. Suddenly, a branch snapped somewhere in the fog. Falcon froze. The sniper hadn't moved, but Falcon knew instinctively that the sniper had noticed. She could sense the shift, the subtle change in the air, the quiet whisper of impending danger. Every sense heightened, every fiber of her being alive with awareness. Falcon seized a fleeting opportunity. She launched herself across a narrow gap in the ridge, using momentum to close the distance. The sniper adjusted, firing as Falcon moved, but the shot grazed her shoulder rather than striking true. Falcon hit the ground, rolled, and sprang up again, closing in. The sniper's eyes flickered, revealing a hint of frustration, or perhaps respect. This was more than a duel, it was a test, a battle of minds and reflexes. Falcon's muscles ached, her lungs burned, but the focus never wavered. She knew her team below was counting on her, their lives intertwined with her decisions in this fog-choked battlefield. Falcon pivoted, rolling behind a rock, then launched a grenade designed to disorient the sniper. Smoke and sparks erupted, momentarily blinding the enemy. Falcon used the distraction to close the final distance, her rifle steady, movements precise. The sniper fired once more, but Falcon was faster, sliding under the line of fire and neutralizing the threat in a controlled, decisive strike. The sniper fell silently, the fog swallowing her form. Falcon's chest heaved, not from exhaustion, but from the intensity of focus, the weight of survival, the knowledge that this was only one battle in a night filled with peril. She signaled the SEALs below, guiding them to advance now that the sniper was out of the fight. As they moved, Falcon scanned the ridge and surrounding forest. The mechanical ambush, the convoy, the sniper, these had all been tests. She knew instinctively that more was coming. The night was far from over. Then a sudden sound, a low, guttural rumble unlike anything the SEALs had encountered. Falcon froze, signaling for silence. The team crouched behind cover, hearts hammering. The fog shifted and a massive shape emerged, moving with terrifying speed. Its metal exterior gleamed dimly through the mist, treads crushing the earth, weapons mounted and ready. This wasn't a vehicle. This was a predator, engineered for war, and it was coming straight for them. Falcon's eyes narrowed. She had anticipated threats, prepared for ambushes, and survived impossible odds, but this was different. It was larger, faster, and stronger than anything she had faced. Every instinct screamed that one wrong move could be fatal. "Form up," she whispered, commanding the team with silent authority. They obeyed, moving as shadows beneath her guidance. Falcon's mind raced through options: engage, evade, redirect. But there was no room for hesitation. The mechanical beast was closing in, its roar vibrating through the fog, the ground shaking with every step. Falcon's eyes flicked to the ridge, then to the forest floor. The terrain was their ally, but only if used with precision. She calculated angles, lines of fire, potential traps, escape routes, and tactical advantage. Every second mattered. The team's lives depended on her decisions. The mechanical predator moved closer, treads tearing through the underbrush. Falcon signaled a precise, coordinated attack. One SEAL would draw fire, another flank, while Falcon herself would strike at the weak points she had already identified. Bullets tore through the fog, explosions rocked the ground, and the forest became a chaotic battlefield of steel, smoke, and instinct. Falcon moved like a shadow, darting between cover, climbing debris, sliding under metal limbs. Her team followed as best they could, their awe growing with each maneuver. She wasn't just surviving, she was dominating, dictating the flow of battle with uncanny precision. But then the predator paused, as if sensing the trap. Its weapons recalibrated, focusing directly on Falcon and her team. The SEALs froze, realizing the danger was far from neutralized. Falcon's jaw tightened. She could feel the weight of the moment, the razor edge of survival pressing down on every decision. She signaled the SEALs to spread, using the terrain to her advantage. Each movement was calculated, designed to create openings, exploit weaknesses, and buy precious seconds. The mechanical predator advanced again, faster this time, and Falcon's mind raced through contingency after contingency. The team moved as one under her direction, bullets flying, grenades detonating, sparks and smoke filling the fog-choked air. Falcon ducked under a metallic limb, rolled across the ground and fired a precise shot at a vulnerable joint in the predator. Sparks flew, metal groaned and the machine faltered, but it wasn't finished. Falcon's eyes glimmered with determination. She knew this wasn't just a test of skill, but of nerve, courage, and instinct. Every second mattered, every move was critical, and failure wasn't an option. She signaled the SEALs forward, ready to finish the engagement, knowing that survival depended on precision, timing, and sheer will. The mechanical predator shifted, preparing for a final strike. Falcon's gaze hardened. She would not let her team fall. She would not be defeated. And in that moment, with the fog swirling, the forest trembling, and the enemy looming, Falcon became more than a soldier. She became a force of nature. The next move, the next strike, could decide everything. The night was far from over, and the forest itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see who would prevail in this deadly confrontation. The mechanical predator lay partially disabled, sparks and smoke curling from its exposed joints, yet it was far from defeated. Falcon's chest rose and fell with controlled breaths, eyes scanning the forest for any other threats. The SEALs regrouped cautiously, adrenaline still coursing through their veins, but there was another tension in the air, one that had nothing to do with bullets or explosions. Falcon sensed it immediately. Something felt off. A subtle shift in the team's rhythm, a hesitation in one SEAL's movements, a flicker of guilt in the way his eyes darted. Falcon had learned to notice these things, small tells, almost imperceptible but meaningful in life-or-death situations. Trust was everything in her world, and now trust was wavering. "Secure the area," she commanded, her voice calm but carrying an edge of authority that brooked no argument. The SEALs fanned out, checking the perimeter, weapons at the ready. Falcon's gaze remained on one particular team member, a man whose reputation was solid, yet something in his manner now suggested deceit. She approached him subtly, keeping her movements casual, letting the fog and the chaos conceal her attention. Every instinct screamed that this was no ordinary unease. Falcon had been in situations like this before, where betrayal came from within rather than from the enemy outside. She watched his micro-expressions, the slight twitch in his shoulder, the flicker of avoidance in his eyes. "Falcon," he started, but she cut him off with a look. "Stay focused, eyes up. Every sound matters," she said softly, her tone leaving no room for argument, yet laced with an unspoken warning. She didn't need to confront him outright. She only needed to observe. The truth often revealed itself under pressure, and she intended to catch it. As they moved deeper into the forest, preparing for the next phase of the mission, Falcon noticed something in the comms, a subtle interference, a distortion that shouldn't have been there. Signals that had been clear were now slightly scrambled, delayed by fractions of a second. In most situations, it would have been a minor annoyance. In this one, it was dangerous. Someone was compromising their communication lines. Falcon's mind raced, connecting the dots. The mechanical predator had been part of a larger plan, the sniper a distraction, and now internal sabotage was a real possibility. She had trained her entire life to anticipate threats from all angles, and her instincts screamed that someone within her team had aligned, willingly or unknowingly, with the enemy. She signaled a brief halt, crouching behind a large boulder. The SEALs followed suit, weapons raised, eyes scanning the fog. Falcon studied each of them silently, her mind working at 1,000 calculations per second. The forest was alive with danger, but it was the invisible threat, the one in their midst, that demanded the most attention. A movement caught her eye, a subtle shift behind a tree, too quick to be casual, too deliberate to be natural. Her hand instinctively went to her sidearm. Her eyes met his, and she saw the tell she had been waiting for. The hesitation, the avoidance, the slight tightening of his jaw. The truth was exposed without a word. Falcon's jaw clenched. She had always known that betrayal in combat was one of the deadliest weapons. One false move could cost lives, destroy a mission, and leave everyone vulnerable. Yet she didn't act immediately. Patience, precision, and timing were crucial. She needed proof, and she needed to position the rest of the team to respond without falling into a trap. Falcon, the man began again, but she cut him off silently with a raised hand. Her eyes never left his, calculating, analyzing, predicting. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out, not from the enemy but from within their formation. One of the SEALs shouted, startled, and the forest erupted with confusion. Falcon dove, rolling behind cover instinctively, and returned fire not toward the external threat, but toward the source of the internal breach. Her movements were fluid, lethal, precise. The traitor fired again, but Falcon anticipated the trajectory, dodging with a roll and neutralizing him in a single, controlled movement. The forest fell silent once more, save for the hum of the still-active mechanical predator in the distance. The SEALs stared, wide-eyed and breathless, realizing that their mission had been compromised from within, and that the woman they called Falcon had saved their lives once again. Falcon wiped a trickle of sweat from her temple, her expression unreadable. She turned to the remaining team members, her gaze sharp, commanding attention. "We move, now. Every second counts. Stay together. Watch each other's backs. Don't let anyone else surprise you." The SEALs nodded, shaken but alive. Respect had transformed into awe, fear into reliance. They had seen her in action, witnessed her control, her precision, her instinct, and they knew they could follow her into the abyss without hesitation. But the night was far from over. The mechanical predator, though partially disabled, had not been neutralized completely. Its sensors flickered in the fog, engines groaning, weapons recalibrating. Falcon knew it wouldn't take long before it struck again, and when it did, they needed to be ready. As they moved, the fog thickened, creating a labyrinth of shadows and hidden threats. Falcon led the way, analyzing every tree, every rock, every leaf that moved in the night. Her mind was a battlefield in itself, calculating strategy, predicting enemy maneuvers, and anticipating traps. The SEALs followed, trusting her implicitly, but aware that the margin for error had never been smaller. Then a sudden explosion tore through the forest. Trees splintered, smoke filled the air, and debris rained down around them. The predator had awakened, its sensors tracking, its mechanical mind calculating, ready to engage with lethal efficiency. Falcon reacted instantly, signaling the team to spread, duck, and engage. Bullets tore through the fog, grenades detonated, and chaos erupted once more. Amidst the turmoil, Falcon kept her focus on the traitor's betrayal, the predator, and the team's survival. Every second was a balance between instinct and calculation, courage and precision. Her mind raced, yet remained calm, the calm of someone who had stared into death countless times and returned unbowed. As the battle unfolded, Falcon realized something crucial. The betrayal had been part of a larger plan. The enemy was not only outside, they had infiltrated, manipulated, and tested her team's trust. Her instincts had saved lives, but the night's true danger was only beginning to reveal itself. She signaled the team to move toward a safer position, a narrow ravine that offered temporary cover and tactical advantage. The SEALs obeyed, hearts pounding, muscles straining, minds alert. Falcon scanned the fog, calculating the next move, anticipating the enemy's response. The predator followed, its massive frame emerging through the mist, engines roaring, weapons primed. Falcon's eyes narrowed. Every second counted. Every decision could mean life or death. The SEALs looked to her, waiting for guidance, trusting her implicitly. Falcon's mind worked with surgical precision, plotting a path, calculating angles, and preparing the team for the next phase. She knew that the betrayal had cost them precious time, but it had also revealed critical information about the enemy's strategy. Now, it was time to turn that knowledge into survival, into victory. And as the fog closed in, the predator advanced, and the forest trembled beneath its weight. Falcon whispered, more to herself than to anyone else, "This isn't over. not by a long shot. The SEALs tightened their grips on their weapons, hearts racing. Falcon led them forward, unwavering, unstoppable, and entirely aware that the real fight, the fight that would test every ounce of skill, courage, and instinct, was about to begin. The night was alive and the storm was just getting started. The forest shook as the mechanical predator advanced, each metallic footfall pounding like a drumbeat of imminent doom. Sparks flew from its exposed joints where Falcon had targeted it earlier, but the machine was far from defeated. Its sensors swept the fog, scanning for heat signatures, motion, anything to lock onto. Falcon's eyes narrowed. She could feel the weight of the moment, the lives of her team resting on her decisions. "Spread out," she barked, voice sharp, cutting through the fog. The SEALs obeyed instantly, moving into prearranged positions, weapons ready. Every footstep, every breath mattered now. One miscalculation, one wrong move, and the predator could decimate them in seconds. Falcon crouched behind a fallen tree, analyzing the monster before her. Its design was sophisticated, military-grade engineering, reinforced armor, advanced targeting systems. But even the most advanced machine had vulnerabilities, and Falcon had already identified them. Her mind raced, mapping angles, calculating distances, and anticipating its next move. A sudden roar shook the forest, and the predator lunged forward, treads tearing through underbrush, crushing rocks and trees alike. Falcon rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a swinging mechanical arm that would have crushed anyone in its path. Bullets ricocheted off the machine's armor, ineffective but drawing its attention. Falcon's team followed her lead, suppressing fire, but the predator was fast, faster than any human could react. Falcon signaled them to fall back toward a narrow ravine she had scouted earlier. Its walls offered cover, funnels, and a tactical advantage that could turn the tide of the battle. As they moved, one SEAL stumbled, and Falcon was instantly there, pulling him back into cover before the predator could take advantage. Every movement was precise, calculated, and instinctive. Her team had learned to trust her completely, but the intensity of the moment was unlike anything they had ever experienced. The predator adjusted its aim, weapons swiveling toward the ravine. Falcon's eyes flicked to the weak points she had already mapped: the joints, the exposed circuits, the limited mobility of its legs in tight spaces. She gestured to the SEALs, silently orchestrating a coordinated attack that relied on timing, precision, and trust. "On my mark," she whispered. Her voice was calm, cold, and commanding. The SEALs understood instantly, moving into positions that would allow them to exploit the machine's vulnerabilities. The first shot was a distraction, a carefully aimed round to draw the predator's sensors downward. Sparks flew as metal met metal, and Falcon darted forward, rolling beneath the predator's swinging arm. She planted an explosive charge on a critical joint, then sprang back as it detonated with a deafening roar. The machine faltered, sparks and smoke filling the air. The SEALs surged forward, firing at exposed circuits and vulnerable panels. Falcon moved with them, coordinating, attacking, anticipating. Every action was a calculation, every second mattered. The predator lashed out, treads crushing debris, mechanical arms swinging, but Falcon was always one step ahead. Then came a shift, something she hadn't expected. The predator released a concussive blast from its weapon, a shockwave that sent the team sprawling. Falcon rolled behind cover, scanning for secondary threats. The blast had cleared space, revealing movement in the fog. A secondary drone, smaller but heavily armed, flanking them from the right. Falcon's eyes sharpened. The enemy had planned for contingencies, for multi-layered attacks. But she thrived in chaos, analyzing threats in real time, prioritizing targets, and executing decisions with precision. She signaled the SEALs, redirecting fire to the smaller drone while she focused on the main predator. Bullets tore through the air, explosions rocked the forest, and the fog became a swirling battlefield of smoke, sparks, and chaos. Falcon moved like a shadow, darting from cover to cover, taking out threats with lethal efficiency. Her team followed, all mixing with fear, every member realizing that their survival depended on her instincts and decisiveness. The predator roared again, staggering from the combined attack, but it was far from defeated. Falcon's eyes scanned the environment, seeking any advantage. A fallen tree lay across the ravine, its trunk forming a natural bridge. Falcon made a split-second decision. They would use it to funnel the predator, limit its mobility, and deliver a final, decisive strike. "Bridge, now!" she shouted, signaling the team to advance. They moved quickly, weapons blazing as the predator pursued. Falcon took the lead, dashing across the fallen tree with the agility of a seasoned warrior, planting charges along its length. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and the predator advanced blindly into the trap. At the last moment, Falcon leapt from the bridge, rolling onto solid ground as the charges detonated. The bridge exploded, sending the predator crashing into the ravine, treads broken, armor splintered, systems sparking violently. The forest shook with the force of the impact, dust and debris flying in every direction. The seals stared, breathless and wide-eyed. The threat was neutralized, but only just. Falcon's chest rose and fell rapidly, not from exhaustion, but from the intensity of focus and the constant mental calculation that had kept them alive. "Check the perimeter," she barked. The team obeyed, scanning the forest, weapons raised. The fog remained, thick and swirling, but the immediate danger had passed. Falcon's eyes never stopped moving, anticipating the next threat even as her body recovered from the last. Then she heard it, a faint whisper in the comms, a distorted voice, barely audible. Her jaw tightened. The infiltration wasn't over. Someone was still interfering, still manipulating, still hidden. Falcon's instincts screamed that the enemy was closer than they realized, perhaps waiting for them to lower their guard. She signaled the team to regroup, keeping movements silent, controlled, and precise. Every member followed, aware that survival required discipline, focus, and trust in Falcon's leadership. They had survived impossible odds before, but this mission had already pushed them to the edge. And Falcon knew the night was far from over. A shadow flickered through the fog, a glimpse of movement too fast, too deliberate to be natural. Falcon's eyes narrowed, every sense heightened. She gestured silently to the team, signaling readiness for immediate engagement. The unknown threat could strike at any moment, and they had to be prepared. The predator was destroyed, the immediate danger neutralized, but the forest itself seemed to whisper with unseen threats. Falcon's mind raced, calculating escape routes, anticipating ambushes, and preparing for whatever came next. The seals trusted her implicitly, knowing that she had guided them through chaos, betrayal, and near-impossible odds. But even they could sense it. The night was far from over. The fog concealed dangers yet to emerge, threats yet to reveal themselves. Falcon's eyes flicked through the mist, calculating, predicting, and preparing for the next phase. And then a sudden movement, a figure emerging from the fog, silent, lethal, and impossibly fast. Falcon's jaw clenched. The final confrontation was approaching. Every skill, every instinct, every ounce of training would be tested. She raised her rifle, signaling the seals to brace. Her gaze hardened, unwavering. The storm was not over. The battle was not finished. And Falcon, the woman who had led them through the impossible, was ready to face whatever came next. The night held its breath. The forest trembled. And the final test of courage, skill, and instinct was about to begin. The fog thickened, curling like a living thing around the seals as they advanced cautiously through the devastated forest. Falcon led the team, her movements deliberate, eyes scanning every shadow, every glint of movement. The mechanical predator lay shattered in the ravine, but the sense of impending danger lingered like a storm cloud. Falcon could feel it. Something was coming, something deliberate, something deadly. Her instincts were proven again and again during the mission, but this time the enemy was unlike anything they had faced. A shadow detached itself from the fog, moving silently, deliberately, with lethal precision. Falcon froze, hand instinctively on her rifle, pulse steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Contact," she hissed, barely audible. The SEALs responded instantly, taking cover behind trees and boulders. The figure emerged fully, tall, armored, and moving with calculated purpose. Falcon recognized the signature immediately. A human operator, highly trained, equipped with advanced gear designed for one thing: elimination. The enemy moved with unnatural efficiency, anticipating every move the SEALs made, dodging bullets, using the terrain, and exploiting shadows. Falcon assessed the situation, calculating angles, trajectories, and timing. Her mind raced, not with fear, but with a meticulous precision honed from years of combat experience. Every second, every movement mattered. The operator fired, a suppressed round cracking through the fog. Falcon rolled behind cover, the shot grazing the rock near her shoulder. She returned fire, but the figure vanished into the mist, almost preternaturally fast. Falcon's eyes narrowed. This wasn't a fight of brute force. It was a chess match, each anticipating the other's moves with deadly intent. "Flank left," she whispered to her team, signaling with hand gestures. The SEALs moved as shadows, suppressing fire and maintaining cover. Falcon adjusted her stance, keeping her focus split between the approaching threat and her team's safety. The operator's attacks became more aggressive, aimed not just at Falcon but at creating chaos among the SEALs. Explosions, gunfire, and the sounds of movement echoed through the forest. Falcon anticipated the operator's patterns, dodging, rolling, and countering with precise shots. Each movement was a balance of aggression and survival, a deadly dance in the mist-shrouded forest. One SEAL fell briefly, tripping over debris, and Falcon reacted instantly. She was at his side before he hit the ground, dragging him behind cover as another round tore through the air where he had been. The SEAL's eyes widened in disbelief, and the others watched, hearts pounding. Falcon's presence was more than leadership. It was the difference between life and death. Then, from the edge of the fog, additional threats emerged. Reinforcements, humans this time, highly trained and coordinated, moving with military precision. Falcon's mind raced. She couldn't afford distraction. She needed to neutralize the operator first, but now she had to factor in these new threats. Her calculation was instant: isolate, distract, eliminate, survive. Team split fire. "Focus on operator, but don't lose sight of reinforcements," she commanded, voice low and controlled. The SEALs obeyed instantly, moving with fluid synchronicity. Bullets tore through the mist, ricocheting off rocks and trees, while Falcon maneuvered with lethal grace, anticipating every strike from every angle. The operator moved unpredictably, vanishing and reappearing, firing with pinpoint accuracy, forcing Falcon to continuously adjust her approach. She leapt over a fallen log, rolled behind a boulder, and took a precise shot at a joint in the operator's armor. Sparks flew, and the figure faltered, but didn't fall. Falcon's jaw tightened. She realized this was more than skill. This was experience, anticipation, and calculated resilience. The operator was designed to survive, to adapt, and to challenge even the best. Falcon adjusted her strategy, using the terrain, the fog, and her team's support to create a controlled environment where she could isolate the threat. She signaled the SEALs to converge, forming a tactical triangle around the operator. The fog limited visibility, but it also provided concealment for their movements. Falcon darted from cover to cover, each step calculated, each breath timed. The SEALs followed her lead, firing in controlled bursts, coordinating with her movements seamlessly. The operator reacted, launching a counterattack designed to split the team. Falcon anticipated the move, intercepting with a well-timed throw of a flash grenade. The explosion illuminated the fog for a split second, revealing the enemy's position and momentarily disorienting them. Falcon didn't hesitate. She advanced, firing precise rounds while rolling and ducking, closing the distance between herself and the operator. A deadly hand-to-hand engagement followed, both moving with skill that spoke of years of combat training. Falcon's strikes were calculated, targeting weak points in the armor, exploiting openings, and maintaining balance between aggression and defense. The SEALs kept the perimeter secure, providing cover while she engaged directly. Suddenly, the operator's armor activated a concealed device, sending a pulse through the forest, disorienting, stunning, and temporarily cutting off Falcon's senses. She staggered, barely keeping her footing, but her training kicked in. She adapted, recalibrated, and continued her assault. The operator lunged, but Falcon countered, using the enemy's momentum to her advantage. A final, precise strike incapacitated the operator, sending them sprawling to the ground. Falcon didn't exhale. The SEALs moved in to secure the area, but her eyes were already scanning the fog, anticipating the next threat. The reinforcements were still present, their positions partially obscured, their intentions clear: eliminate Falcon and her team. She signaled the SEALs to move tactically, using cover, suppressing fire, and controlled advancement. Every movement was choreographed, every decision critical. Falcon's leadership was unspoken yet absolute. Her team followed without hesitation, their trust absolute after witnessing her skill under fire. Then came the final revelation. A faint signal, a pattern in the fog, a series of movements too deliberate to be natural. Falcon's eyes sharpened. This wasn't just a single operator or a squad. It was a coordinated force, testing, probing, and anticipating their every move. The mechanical predator, the sniper, the traitor, it had all been part of a larger, orchestrated plan. Falcon's mind raced, calculating options. She couldn't fight them all head-on. She needed to isolate, outmaneuver, and eliminate threats strategically. Her eyes flicked to the terrain. Fallen trees, ravines, fog, and shadows, all could be leveraged to her advantage. She formulated a plan, silent but deadly, signaling the SEALs to prepare for the final confrontation. The fog thickened further, swallowing movements, hiding threats, amplifying tension. Falcon's heart rate remained steady. Her mind was a weapon sharper than any gun. The forest seemed to close in, each shadow a potential enemy, each rustle a signal of imminent danger. "Stay sharp," she whispered to the team. "Everything we've faced is nothing compared to what's coming." The SEALs tightened their grips on weapons, eyes wide with anticipation. Falcon led them forward, silent, methodical, unstoppable. The final confrontation was approaching, a test of skill, courage, and instinct that would push them to the brink. And as the fog swirled, shadows deepened, and the forest trembled, Falcon knew one thing with absolute certainty. The night was far from over, and the storm they had endured was only the prelude to a battle that would decide everything. The fog thickened to a ghostly white, swallowing the forest in a cold, suffocating silence. Falcon moved with practiced precision, each step measured, eyes scanning for even the slightest hint of movement. The SEALs followed her lead, shadows among shadows, hearts pounding but trusting completely in the woman whose call sign had earned them survival time and again: Falcon. Ahead, the enemy's reinforcements began to emerge from the mist, their movements coordinated, disciplined, lethal. They were no ordinary adversaries. They were trained, equipped, and confident, expecting to catch Falcon and her team off guard. But Falcon had anticipated this. She had read the patterns, calculated every possibility, and prepared her team for a battle that would test every ounce of skill, courage, and instinct. "Form up," she whispered, signaling the team into a defensive perimeter. The SEALs moved silently, weapons raised, senses sharpened. Falcon's eyes scanned the approaching threat, calculating distances, trajectories, and tactical advantages. Every movement, every breath mattered. The enemy advanced, but Falcon had already identified the terrain that would turn the fight in their favor. A narrow canyon cutting through the forest, walls high and treacherous, perfect for channeling the enemy into a trap. She signaled the SEALs, and they repositioned silently, the fog masking their movements. Suddenly, the first volley of gunfire erupted, bullets slicing through the fog. Falcon rolled behind cover, returning fire with precision, each shot deliberate, each movement calculated. The SEALs followed her lead, synchronized in action and intent. Sparks flew as rounds hit rocks and trees, the forest shaking with the intensity of the firefight. Falcon's eyes caught the glint of metal in the fog, a hidden drone, armed and moving to flank them. She adjusted instantly, signaling two SEALs to intercept while she focused on the incoming foot soldiers. The team split, each member executing their role flawlessly. Falcon moved like a phantom, dodging, rolling, and firing with uncanny precision. The enemy responded with ruthless efficiency, but Falcon anticipated every move. She used the canyon walls to her advantage, bouncing rounds to suppress advance, forcing the attackers into kill zones pre-designated by her calculations. Explosions rocked the ground as she lobbed precise grenades, each detonation sending debris and smoke to disorient the enemy. One of the SEALs shouted, signaling a breach from the enemy's side. Falcon pivoted instantly, analyzing the threat in milliseconds. A secondary team of reinforcements tried to flank them through the fog, but she anticipated it, firing precise shots to neutralize the first wave and redirecting the team to counter the second. Amid the chaos, Falcon spotted movement, a familiar silhouette emerging from the mist. It was the operator she had faced earlier, somehow recovered, more lethal and relentless than before. Their eyes locked, an unspoken acknowledgement of mutual respect and deadly intent passing between them. Falcon didn't hesitate. She advanced, moving like water through the fog, her rifle a blur, her every step precise. The operator countered, firing with deadly accuracy, anticipating her moves. The two clashed in a deadly dance of skill, strategy, and instinct, each exploiting weaknesses, each anticipating the other's moves. The SEALs engaged simultaneously, taking down reinforcements with disciplined precision, but Falcon's focus remained on the operator. She had learned over countless missions that one decisive move could turn the tide. And now she was calculating it, every microsecond critical. The operator lunged, attempting to close distance for a hand-to-hand engagement. Falcon anticipated it, dodging and rolling to the side, delivering a precise strike to disable the enemy's weapon arm. Sparks flew as metal struck metal. The operator stumbled but recovered, a flash of frustration crossing their eyes. Falcon's mind raced. She needed to end this quickly, efficiently, and without risking her team. She drew a deep breath, calculating the final sequence. The canyon's layout, the fog, the enemy's position, all aligned perfectly for the final strike. With a subtle hand signal, she coordinated her team. One SEAL suppressed the operator's movement with precise fire, while another positioned for a tactical strike. Falcon moved like a shadow, closing the distance, her rifle steady, her eyes locked on the operator. In a sudden, fluid motion, Falcon executed the decisive maneuver, a combination of tactical precision and sheer instinct. She struck the operator's exposed joint with a well-placed shot, disarming them instantly. At the same moment, her team neutralized the remaining reinforcements, the canyon echoing with the final thuds of defeat. The forest fell silent. Fog swirled lazily, smoke rising from scorched earth and shattered branches. Falcon lowered her weapon, chest heaving, eyes scanning the aftermath. Every SEAL was accounted for, every threat neutralized. The mechanical predator, the operator, the reinforcements, each had been conquered through a combination of skill, instinct, and leadership that transcended ordinary training. Falcon moved through the clearing, checking on her team, ensuring each member was safe. The SEALs looked at her with a mixture of exhaustion, awe, and gratitude. They had survived the impossible, not just because of training, but because of the woman they called Falcon. The operator she had just faced lay incapacitated but alive, a silent testament to the intensity of their duel. Falcon studied them, respect in her gaze, knowing that survival often meant acknowledging skill, even in your enemy. She turned to her team, voice calm but carrying the weight of authority and relief. "Stay alert. Extraction is close, but don't let your guard down," she commanded. The SEALs nodded, following her lead as they moved toward the extraction point. The fog, once a shroud of uncertainty and danger, now seemed to part just enough to guide them. As they approached the rendezvous, Falcon's mind remained sharp, analyzing every detail of the forest, anticipating potential threats and ensuring her team's safety. The night had tested them to their limits: mechanical predators, human adversaries, betrayal, and the relentless chaos of combat, but they had survived. The extraction helicopter descended through the fog, its rotors slicing the mist, light piercing the darkness. Falcon signaled and the team moved quickly, boarding with military precision. As the helicopter lifted off, the forest below shrinking into shadows, Falcon took a moment to breathe, her gaze scanning the landscape she had conquered. The SEALs sat, weapons still at the ready, hearts still pounding, adrenaline slowly ebbing. But their eyes remained fixed on Falcon, their leader, their guardian, their legend in the making. They had witnessed her in the crucible of danger, and they knew that her call sign, Falcon, was not just a name. It was a promise of survival, a testament to skill, and a symbol of unbreakable instinct. As the helicopter soared into the night, Falcon's mind began the debrief even before landing. Every movement, every calculation, every decision had been critical. She had led her team through chaos and emerged victorious, yet she remained vigilant. The world of combat was unforgiving, and she knew the next mission, the next threat, was never far away. But for this night, victory belonged to Falcon and her team. They had survived the impossible, overcome betrayal, outmaneuvered death, and faced the most advanced threats imaginable. And through it all, one woman had led them, unmatched, unyielding, and unforgettable. As the forest disappeared beneath the mist, and the city lights shimmered on the horizon, Falcon looked out over the darkness, eyes sharp, mind racing, instincts alert. The night had been won, but she knew that legend was not born in victory alone. It was forged in the crucible of danger, in moments of fear and courage, and in the unwavering determination to survive against all odds. And somewhere in the shadows of the night, the world would come to know the name Falcon, and the SEALs would forever remember why. The helicopter climbed higher, carrying them to safety, but the story of that night, of survival, skill, and sheer willpower, would echo in the corridors of military history. Falcon had led them through hell and returned unscathed, not just as a soldier, but as a force to be reckoned with, a symbol of resilience and unmatched instinct. The mission was over. The night was conquered, and Falcon, as always, was already looking ahead, ready for the next challenge, the next impossible mission, the next battle where instinct, skill, and courage would determine life or death. The SEALs, exhausted but alive, knew one thing for certain: they had witnessed something extraordinary, and they would never forget the woman whose call sign had become legend: Falcon.